Hello, my dear listeners. I'm Sir Wraeclast, and today I'm going to tell you the lore behind Clearfell before the rot. Before the wolf, before the manor, before the forest gives up its old secrets, Clearfell is a place trying to remain human. Tonight, we begin with the settlement behind the wooden wall, Renly's refuge, Una's lost home, Finn's last shelter, and the first sickness moving through Ogham before anyone in the camp has language for it. The question is simple enough to ask and difficult to answer. What was Clearfell before the rot reached it? The road to Clearfell begins with a dying man asking for help.
The miller went off to warn Clearfell about a strange sickness plaguing our men. I was fixing to go after him till that bloody thing got to me first.
That line gives the first shape of the crisis. The danger first appears before it has the names of count, curse, seed, or war for Wraeclast. It is a sickness. It has reached working men. It has reached the route to a small refuge. A man who should be part of the settlement's ordinary life has gone ahead to warn the others. Then the warning changes form.
Reach Clearfell. Find the miller.
The miller is supposed to be a messenger. When we find him, he has become the first named horror at the gate. For this episode, we leave the miller's full tragedy for the next chapter. His place here is the omen. Clearfell is introduced through a worker tied to grain, warning, and survival. The first named monster comes from the local world, far from the image of a distant demon. Wraeclast opens the door to Act 1 by showing that ordinary labor has already been caught in the change. The gate opens into something far from triumph, crowded, wet, and temporary. Renly gives the settlement its plainest diagnosis.
Well, this place was never meant to house this many people, especially not the sick and injured. But there's nowhere else to go.
Clearfell has no grandeur. It was built for smaller needs than the ruin of a region. Renly sees the problem as a smith and survivor would see it: bodies, shelter, hunger, tools, walls, water. The sick and injured are inside because the world outside has closed.
The monsters creeping out of the forest keep us locked within these wooden walls, and the Count's tyranny has made outlaws of everyone here, so nobody's coming to save us.
Those wooden walls matter. They are the first border in the story. Civilization inside, forest outside, hunger pressing between them. Clearfell is safe enough to breathe and too small to live. The camp survives by delaying the moment when hunger, sickness, or violence gets through. Finn reads the same place with less mercy.
This is a wooden tomb, if you care to see it objectively. We're not quite dead yet, but food supply is dwindling, and I've seen what hunger can make a man do. The monsters out there are not the ones that will get us in the end.
Finn jokes because that is how he keeps fear at a distance. Even so, his line cuts close. His fear reaches past the things in the trees. He fears what hunger can make people do. Clearfell's danger already has two faces: the forest beyond the wall and the human body inside it, waiting too long for food. Renly confirms the practical side of that fear when he speaks about the devourer. A beast under the soil prevents the survivors from leaving to gather food. Clearfell becomes a refuge unable to feed itself. In a place like Ogham, that is a slow sentence. So the first picture of Clearfell is built from limits. Too many people, too little food, sick bodies, injured bodies, a forest full of creatures, a ruler whose law has made the refugees into outlaws. Renly says no one is coming to save them. He says he wears a brave face, then admits he sees no road to survival. That is the public truth of Clearfell. Behind it sits the older truth of Ogham. Ogham was a lived place before it became a ruin on the way to the manor. Una remembers it through loss. Her family had a house, a harvest, a father, neighbors who knew when to warn her. Count Gionor's cruelty reaches her life through a small, brutal sentence. Her father was arrested for bringing in the harvest one day late. That detail matters because it is ordinary. The scene is domestic, a harvest, a deadline, a father taken from his family. Geonor's justice has entered the calendar of farming life and turned delay into crime. Una survives because she is away when the soldiers come. Her neighbors warn her on the road home. Clearfell is as far as she can run before the forest closes in.
Welcome to the camp of the lost, stranger. We survive, but we do not live. I am Una.
That line is the heart of the first settlement. Clearfell keeps breath in the body while the old life stays gone. The people inside are alive in the narrowest sense. Their homes, roads, village, fields, and kinship structures are breaking behind them. Finn gives the same wound a different voice.
Una's house. Renly's house. They had real places to live. I was always so envious, but I guess they're like me now. Vagabonds. Vagrants. Well, it begs the question. Is this home now?
For Finn, the destruction of Ogham village levels a social order that already kept him outside. He was clanless. He moved through other people's territory, borrowed shelter, wore masks, stayed funny, stayed useful, stayed difficult to pin down. When he asks whether Clearfell is home now, the joke carries a sad little knife. Everyone else has become what he already was, displaced, uncertain, dependent on a place that may not last. That gives Clearfell its first deeper concept. It is a refuge made of unequal losses. Renly loses a smithy and a village. Una loses family and home. Finn loses the last distance between his outcast life and everyone else's ruin. The camp gathers them together, yet each person arrives with a different wound. The older culture around them is built from endurance. Geonor's journal, read later in the manor, gives the proud version of that history. He writes that Ezomiter folklore reaches back to the winter of the world, that the Eternal Empire tried to crush them and failed, that even the Vaal Cataclysm could not end them. He speaks of runes, survival, home, hearth, bloodline. Keep the wording in mind: survival, home, hearth. In Clearfell, those words become daily needs. Survival is food and clean water. Home is the village behind the smoke. Hearth is the family space the refugees can no longer reach. Geonor takes the same words and bends them toward purity. Renly, Una, and Finn live inside the cost of that bend. Una preserves another version of Ogham's memory. She speaks of the stones of Searle, of runes taught long ago by newcomers who arrived through a ring in the forest. Knowledge came through exchange, food and shelter for runes. In that older story, Ogham survives by taking strangers in. That matters beside Clearfell's gate. The refuge is crowded with the lost, and one of the region's old origin stories remembers outsiders bringing power in exchange for hospitality. Geonor's fear of impurity fights against a culture whose own history includes borrowed knowledge. The forest carries its own before state as well. Una says the Beltimber was once beautiful. She says the Grellwood of old belonged to First Ones, spirits, joy, and old magics. Paths through that forest once connected home to home. Now the known ways have twisted, and the people lose the road back to what should be theirs. The land has become a locked room. Clearfell sits at the center of that lock. It is surrounded by a forest that remembers older powers, ruled by a count whose mind is narrowing around blood, and visited by a stranger in a hood who understands the crisis at a scale beyond the camp's reach. The hooded one gives the cleanest warning.
These strange occurrences, the wild beasts growing mad, the dead rising, these are not a coincidence. The source of this affliction may be found in Ogham village.
Clearfell begins as a refuge, and that makes its horror personal. The people inside its walls wait for food, word from home, and one sign that the forest has not swallowed everything they knew. Next, we follow the first hunger directly: the miller, Brannock, the grain road, the mud burrow, and the devourer beneath the soil. The rot begins where people eat. That's all I have for you tonight. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. There is much more lore and many more stories to come. Thank you for taking the time to watch my content. Until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.